Alright guys, welcome to your next Mel video for your character rigging class. This time we're going to talk about something that is used quite a bit in Mel. It's going to be how to play with attributes. There's a couple of different um, specific commands that we use a lot, and again, like all the other videos, we're winging it here. I have somewhat of an organized plan here, but we're just going to play with some stuff first so you understand how to use these commands. The two most common commands that I find myself using are called setAttr and getAttr. Basically, attr is an attribute, so you can set an attribute or you can get an attribute, and I use them a lot. And you can also create attributes and delete attributes just like you could in Maya. And obviously, there's a command behind it. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and brought up one of my old scripts. I made this a very long time ago. It's a very simplistic script. It's basically a lock and hide script used mainly for rigging when I don't want to have to go in and individually set up like, okay, I've got this one control and I want to turn off the ability to rotate this one. So I just use my lock and hide script. I'll just select my items that I've got up here and hit get attributes. What it does is it brings up all the visible and keyable attributes that I had on that object. And what I can do is I can go in here and just say all the rotates on this and all the translates on this, and I don't know, the visibility on the cylinder. What I can do is I can lock the selected, or I can lock and hide the selected, or lots of stuff like that. So let me just unlock and hide all of them. Now I've also done some pretty clever stuff here where I can turn all the rotates and visibilities off. But basically what it's doing is it's going to adjust um, one of the ability for these attributes to show up. Now, it's not exactly setting or getting an attribute, it's actually hiding the attribute itself, but it's kind of a similar example where you're going to want to use this very same process where you want to set an attribute. Well, it's kind of the same thing. I'm telling that attribute go away, turn off, lock, something like that. Well, in set attribute and get attribute, what you're going to be doing is saying, well, I want this attribute to be this number rather than hiding it. So just a little example. We'll be using this script again later, most likely, just for a small example. But anyway, I just wanted to show that real quick, okay? Now, what we've got here are just three primitives. And let me bring up my script editor here so we can do a little work. And I'll erase the top part here so you can't see me. We don't need all that stuff, okay? So, oh, my middle mouse button doesn't want to work. That's great. Anyway, we don't really need that, okay? What we're going to do is I'm just going to take one of these. Let's say the polycube, because it's got some translates up there. What we're going to do is use getAttr to find out what those attributes are. I'm just going to show you how to use the commands real quick, okay? So let's say I want to set the rotate x of pcube1. What I can do is just use the command setAttr, okay? And again, Maya or Mel command reference, use it, setAttr. You can read through all the flags, not like there's that many of them, but you can also see at the very bottom of setAttr there are tons of examples. It's very simple to use, okay? So setAttr, let's say p cube 1 dot rotate x. Now that's one way of writing rotate x. You can also just write .rx for a shorter version. I'll be using these a lot more, so you may see me do that. But you can type out the long name if you want. All right, so pcube1.rx, let's say I want it to be rotated 78 degrees. Okay, so I'll run it. Well, look at that. Rotate x is now 78 degrees. And there you can see it over here too. Okay, that's setAttr. That's really all there is to it. Let's say I play with the scale. Scale x 50. Why not? Bam. Scale y 50. As simple as that. It's really not the most difficult of commands to understand, but that's how you set an attribute. Whenever you go up here and change something, well, look at what it would just used. setAttr, and did exactly what I told it to. So whenever you go up to your channel box and change an attribute, it's actually using that command. You just might not have noticed it ever before. Okay? Now, the opposite of setting is actually finding out what it is, and that's what getAttr is for. So let's say I just put some value in here for all the scales on the cylinder, let's say 62.48. Okay, it's a very large cylinder right now. So if I want to find out that number and use it within my program, granted, yes, I can look at that channel box over there and say, it's 62.48. The program isn't going to know how to do that. I have to tell it what that value is, and I don't want to hard code it in there. Let's say, by the way, hard coding is specifically setting the name or the number of something. If I want the program to find out for me, I mean, let's say we're writing a program so that everybody can use it, and if you use the name pSphere1 for your program, who's to know that somebody didn't rename their sphere properly? So it's not really going to know what pSphere1 is. So it's better to have the program find out for you what that number is. Okay, so getAttr. As simple as setAttr. You're just saying getAttr, and in this case it's p cylinder1 dot scale x. Hit enter, and the result, as you can see right there, 62.48. Now, we've seen before where we can actually use variables to get these for us. So we've seen the backticks and stuff like that, and how Maya will automatically say, okay, let's find out what the result of this is first. I believe I typed this previously in a previous week, but what I'll show you is just say like float sil sx scale x equals that whole thing in backticks. What this line is basically going to do, it's going to say, okay, well, I've got this variable and it equals something, and then it notices, oh, wait, there are backticks here. I should probably figure that one out first before I go ahead and say cylinder SX is something. Okay, so it'll calculate that first. Now, we really aren't doing too much with it, but I can use the print command or something. I use print a lot in my scripts. If, I want to find out, well, something's got an error somewhere. So what I'll do is put a print command in there and be like, all right, print this value. That way I know where the program is stopping or having a fault. So I can just print. Granted, this isn't really going to do much, but not much more than we already saw with that result line. But you can see it prints down here. So it's a good little thing. And that's completely off topic, but let's just keep going. Okay, let me scale that down and zoom in. Alright, again, my middle mouse button does not work on this computer, but it's not a huge deal. Okay, so that's basically how you use set and getAttr. They're extremely simple, but very useful at the same time. And if we go back to our command reference and just put in attr, you can see there's quite a few different things that we can use here. We've got connectAttr, which I'm sure you've used before, rename, set, a lot of stuff that you've done. I've used listattr on numerous occasions, even for, I believe that lock and hide actually used it quite a bit, just to list out all the attributes. So there's quite a few things. There's addattr too, on how to create your own custom ones, which obviously there is a thing for, adding your own attributes to objects right there, but you can do it through scripting too. Okay, so let's take a look at this little program that I created that uses both set and getAttr. And I'll go ahead and bring up that window so you can at least see kind of what the scripting looks like here. Okay, so what I've done is made a very simple program here. It's got what's known as a float slider button group. If you've ever seen these sliders, much like in, let's say, the Hypershade or something like that. Actually, this is pretty much exactly the same. But it's got a slider where I've set the min and max values to be 100, and I believe I connected that to, it will be the translate x of pSphere1. So I don't need these anymore. Those were just examples. So we're just dealing with this sphere right now. Okay, yes, I've hard-coded it, but this is just an example. Okay, so what I've done is the first one works with setAttr. The second one here, this little text field button group, this utilizes getAttr, and obviously you can tell that from what's here on the side. Okay, so the first one, the slider will basically say, okay, it's 58.9. It's going to set an attribute for us. In this case, like I said, it's connected to the translate x. The getAttr one is going to, oh no, wait, I'm sorry, I'm reading them backwards. The setAttr one is going to use the scales. So whatever number I put in here, it's going to set all three scales equal to that number on pSphere1. The getAttr will actually tell us what the translate x is. So again, I'm just playing around using some random stuff. I'm not going to use visibility because there's really only two values that can possibly be. So what I've done here, this slider, let's say I set it to 10.6. Why not? Once I hit the setAttr button, what it's going to do is go up here to the my setAttr command. If you look down at line 20 where the float slider is, you can see that -bc my setAttr. That is button command. There's a lot of little elements within this one float slider button group. Obviously, it's got a field, it's got a slider, and it's got a button. So it's three things all in one command or one control. So there's a lot more to it. They're very useful though. I love these things. I don't get enough opportunities to use them actually, but in this case, it's very useful. Okay, especially for attributes. I tend to use fields and sliders and stuff like that. Kind of like your blend shape window if you've ever seen that before. Alright, so I set the value in there, but it's not doing anything yet. The big problem with creating your own UIs, unless you're like an amazing programmer like with Python or something like that, these don't automatically update for you. It's one of the follies of Mel, and one of the best reasons to know other languages, because those things will be real time. You know, you click, you change a value, you can actually set it so that it automatically does it for you. With Mel, not exactly very easy to do that. So what you got to do is use buttons to kind of go ahead and do the action for you. It's a little longer in the process, but generally speaking, not exactly the biggest pain in the butt ever. So I set it to 10.6, hit set adder, and as you can see, it goes ahead, and we'll look at this command first before we really minimize this, even though you can see the sphere back there. What it's done is basically in there, we've got a float variable. And much like you just saw a couple minutes ago, we've got this in backticks. What it's doing is it's querying the value of the float slider button group. In this case, the value refers to what is in that text field right now. Okay, so it's querying the value, and then automatically after that, it goes ahead and uses set adder to tell pSphere1's scale x, y, and z to be that value. Now, there's actually a quicker way we can do this. I didn't intend to show you this, but I'll go ahead and do it. I can save myself time by combining lines together. So it'd be something like this, psphere1.sx, and then in parentheses here, I can use float slider button group query value my fsbg. Okay, there you go. This basically removes the necessity of actually having a variable for it. That's just cleaning up your code, so you don't have to have 20 lines to do, you know, simplistic things. But it's not exactly a huge deal here. It's basically removing like one line of code where we wouldn't need the variable, but it's not necessary here. So that's just one way of doing it, but either way. So as you can see, if you look over here in the channel box, you can see it's changed the scale x, y, and z automatically to 10.6. So our set adder is working. Again, set adder is a very simple command, but very useful. Okay. All right. So let's check out the get adder command. Now, currently, this is not exactly the most exciting thing in the world. It's just kind of sitting right at the origin, and I believe I set it up to translate x. So let's give it some value, 56.424 over there in the channel box. Again, when we hit that button for the text field button group, right there, it is going to go up here and run the command myGetAdder that I created. It has a variable, much like before, and then in backticks, it's going to get attribute psphere1.tx. So it's going to grab the translate x for me, and then after that, I have edited a text field, or the text field of the text field button group, so that whatever the value that it got from that previous line right there, sphere tx, it's going to go ahead and edit it and put it into that text field for me. Okay, well, this is completely useless at this point. It's just to show you how to use getAdder effectively within your own programming. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hit getAdder, and there it is. It's actually giving me more significant digits past the decimal point, which is cool if you really need it. Generally, Maya will round in the channel box to 3 points, I believe. I guess that's evident from right there. So that is basically it on how to use set and get adder. I highly, highly recommend you go through your my command reference, considering you will have a program to write anyway for this class. It's very, very useful, trust me. Okay. So anyway, guys, good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.